Hello everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Crushing Comics Live. I'm your host, Krisis with a K, and I'm here to talk to you about the comic week that was, and the comic week that will be, and just comics in general. I had a pilot broadcast last week where we got some awesome feedback from all of you, and also I made some improvements for this week, so I'm going to try it again. And the main thrust of this is going to be talking about my full pull list from last week. I read every in-continuity Marvel and DC book. I read a ton of indie books. I'm trying to cut down a little bit on my intense reading, but I still wind up pulling almost 40 books a week, and that's a substantial amount of the comic book market, about 50%. So I figure I'm reading them so you don't have to. I can at least give you an idea of what maybe you should check out, what maybe is not going to be to your tastes, and also what maybe you should pick up in collected editions. So thanks so much for joining. Before I get to that tuned up look at the comics of last week, because we have a countdown clock now, we have covers, we have credits, many things have gone on behind the scenes here. But first I want to talk about a topic which seems to be happening again and again on the comic internet, especially in comics Twitter, which is this idea of toxic positivity. Now, it's not toxic positivity to say, let people like things. That's not toxic positivity. That's just letting people like things. If somebody started a thread to be like, these are my 10 favorite books right now and I love them so much, let them love their 10 books. Now, if they say, what do you think about the books, or am I missing something about these books, that's an invitation for discussion. But what I'm seeing a lot of lately is people saying, well, if you don't like it, just keep your mouth shut. Didn't anybody ever tell you, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all? And I think that hurts every art form that we consume, especially the comic book art form, because in comics it's so small, and if we only pretend like books are positive all of the time, nobody can make an informed choice. If you look up reviews of some book, Batman, which I love right now, and every review is like, this is great, 5 stars, I love it, it's spectacular, and nobody describes why they don't like it, then you read it and you don't like it, and you think, A, am I crazy? B, is there something wrong with me? C, am I missing something? You don't have any kind of critical sentiment to help support your read. And that's what you'll see across many discussions of comic books, is that people are afraid to go negative about comic books. And people have like a real fear of other people going negative. Like if you write, oh, I read X-Men this week, it was okay. There are, I can tell you, because this happened to me, a stream of people who will come onto your Twitter and be like, why do you think X-Men's only okay? Because I read like 50 comic books a week and it was only in the middle of the pack. So I want to really warn against this idea of toxic positivity. You don't have to make people like things. What you can ask for is that they try to explain their dislike, explain their critical sentiment, and don't do it in a way that's nasty about the book, mean about the creators, that's a personal attack. I think part of why we got to this toxic positivity place is because for a while the only critique we'd ever see at comic books was just like really nasty stuff about the creators, or this book has a woman in it so it must be terrible, like meh. So that's part of why I wanted to do this show. It was what inspired my first episode last week, is guess what? There are tons of comic books every week that I don't like. And I like to talk about why I don't like them, because the same reason I don't like them might be the reason that you like them. And I think that is a huge reason to be against this kind of enforced positivity in comics. So when you see somebody say, if you don't like something, just don't talk about it. You got to just shoo them away. And you've got to talk about the thing you don't like in a way that's just as compelling as the way that you talk about the things that you like. I want to say hi to everybody who's joining in the live chat right now. I see Postpunk Omnidog and Tim. Thanks so much for joining me. I am now going to get into the comics from last week, all the ones that I pulled, and I actually have a timer. One of the comments last week was like, you said you were going to review them in a minute, and then you didn't. As fast as I talk, I still didn't get it into a minute. So let me show you what I have in store for you this week when I share my screen. Look at this fanciness. Ready? Oh, let me just make sure I get the right version of sharing here. Is this what it's supposed to look like? Yeah. Okay. You see that down at the bottom? That's going to count me down while I talk about the book. So let's get ready to dig into last week, the 16th of June, 2021, DC Comics. Here we go. I have no idea if this is going to work or not. I've not tried it live. Here we go. Catwoman. So Catwoman. Okay. Catwoman, it's a really wonderful book. It's getting stronger and stronger. It's right now written by Ram V, who's writing a lot of really great titles. And this art in this issue by Evan Cagle, it is uncannily beautiful, especially with Jordi Belaire's colors. Here's the thing, this issue, not so much of a jump onto it issue. This guy, this weird kind of priestly, creepy guy, has been stalking at the corners of Catwoman's life recently, and he's finally catching up to her. He's really brutal, but he wants to take care of her in a specific way, and this issue kind of does that by having him interrogate somebody and having the police interrogate somebody to give their different accounts of Catwoman. So it doesn't have a lot of actual Catwoman in it, and I don't think it would be a good issue to jump on with, but this run, it's like a roller coaster going up and up. It gets stronger with every issue, and just if you look at the art here, I love the vividness of Jordi Belaire's colors, like that wash of green background. I forget if it's like a green wallpaper or green, I don't even recall, but it's just really fun, and I hate when everything has to be brown, muddy, and realistic. So high ratings, but you might want to go back for an older issue. Whew, I did it. Time's up. Look at that. I built that with the font that we love on all of our things on the channel, everything. In the future, I could even have comic characters screaming at me. Oh no, I forgot to hit pause. Okay. Whew, let's go. The Preacher, a good question from the chat. The Preacher character, as far as I know, is new to Ram V's run. I, as we all know, am not as well read in DC as I am in Marvel. But as far as I know, that is a new character. All right, here we go. This is Infinite Frontier Secret Files. This is a digital-first comic book, and it is piloted by Joshua Williamson, but he has a co-writer in every issue. This issue has Stephanie Phillips as the co-writer. This has maybe been the first one that I'm not like super wild about, just because it focuses on the actual director Bones, but it does that through his interactions with Boomerang. That's Boomerang. I know it kind of looks like Solomon Grundy. It's not. And I just didn't really love the way that it used Boomerang all that much, but it's a really fun story that kind of gets to the bottom of who Director Bones is, who he has been through the ages, and I think Phil Hester's artwork really, really works for it, because it's almost got that Magnolia, really kind of bold, stamped feel, and those colors, see, this is the benefit of having credits, by Nick Filardi. Really good colors. Again, I love a good, vivid, kind of otherworldly looking comic book. You can read any one of these Infinite Frontier issues. Each one is a one-shot looking at a character who I guess is going to be important sometime soon in the DC universe. I have no idea, but Stephanie Phillips, really, I'm enjoying her more and more in every book that I read, and so it was fun to see her as a co-writer here. Hey, with 1 second left. Okay, let's see what's up next. I think the hardest thing is just rewinding right now, just like back in the Blockbuster days. Oh, I never showed, oh, I did show the comic page. Okay, Nightwing by Tim Taylor. Here we go. Tim Taylor's Nightwing. I think it's a very specific book for some people because they've been wronged for so long on Nightwing. It's like me with X-Men, right? After you read 6 years of X-Men that you don't like, any vestige of liking the character who you are familiar with makes you excited. And I think a lot of people are liking it just for that. But I don't think that's the only value that it has. First of all, the art by Bruno Redondo is absolutely bonkers brilliant. And Adriano Lucas, who's the colorist on Birthright, is really great here too. But what it's doing is it's kind of establishing a space for Nightwing. It's making Bloodhaven feel lived in again. It is giving him a surrounding cast of characters that we're familiar with. Tim Drake pops up, Barbara Gordon pops up, and it's giving him a new enemy and kind of a new series of challenges that are not just like, oh, it's the underworld. So I really enjoy that. It's got really kinetic art. This issue, however, ended in a way that made me really eyebrow raise. I was like, really? Like, do we have to have a twist to make everything great? But I have to say, it's a lot of fun, even though if quality might still be like in the average part, plot-wise. Time's up. Okay. Well, there you go. I will say, though, I mean, if you have been really feeling the, like, oh, Nightwing, where's my good Nightwing, especially after all that Rick Grayson stuff, it's a real relief. Okay, let's see what's up next. I've discovered I don't even have to pause if I just start talking right away. Okay. So what's next? Oh no, the clock is running. I don't even know what the comic is. It's Static, Season 1. This is the first vanguard of the return of Milestone Comics, which I have no familiarity with. I never read them in the 90s, so this is all new to me. I think he had a TV show, a cartoon. I have no idea. Vitaella really shows why they are one of the best comic writers with teen voices right now. This feels like something a youth could be talking about, but it doesn't feel so youthy that it's all just kind of catchwords to me as like an old person. It still reads and is fun. It strikes me that this art, it's tinkering with his origin, but I don't know his origin, so I can't really tell. But the artwork, you know, Crisscross rarely misses on art, and this has got a wonderful kind of glowing animated series kind of feel, which I'm a big sucker for. You'll hear me always go in favor of it. I think this is worth picking up. I can't speak to if you're an old school Static fan, if this is going to satisfy you, but it feels like a new version that really works in 2021. It's pleasing, and it's voiced very, very well. I will say this book did not have a full color or credits block anywhere in the book, so I am unable to tell you who the letterer is. I think I saw Vitaella tweet about it, but it's not in the book. this new format. I'm happy people are digging the new format. What I did is I screen captured the credits page and the cover and the one interior page from every comic book as I went. The Marvel comics, of course, have a full credit recap page, so I'll put up that whole page. It'll be easier as we go through Marvel. But these DC ones, I had to take a little non-spoiler slice because I don't want to ruin any comics. There's also no like full spoiler images. I really, really tried to avoid that. All right, here we go. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. If this is tomorrow, I don't know if I want to wake up. I don't think Tom King should be writing this series. I don't think it's a good Supergirl story. The art, unfortunately, is brilliant, so I'm probably going to keep sticking around for that. I love Evely and Lopez as a team because Evely is the artist, Matthias Lopez as the colorist. I don't think Tom King really knows anything about Supergirl. I don't think he has anything useful to say about Supergirl. The whole plot, I mean, I'll spoil it a little. It's her 21st birthday, but she can't get drunk on Earth because we have a yellow sun, so she wants to go somewhere to get drunk. And she witnesses a fight, and she becomes an accessory to murder. Like, I fundamentally do not want that Supergirl book. Keep it. I will probably read it at least 2 or 3 weeks because this is one of my favorite art teams in comics. But I don't know. Like, I just feel like if I was at this pitch meeting, I would have been like, do it with somebody else, Tom. So that's all I have to say about that. If you're looking for more of a review in that book, brilliant writer did a review of it on Gatecrashers. Check out Gatecrashers. They're on Twitter, Gatecrashers Pod. That echoes my sentiments, but with a little bit more, maybe, decor. Oh, here's the interior page. Again, some of my favorite artists. I forgot to do that. I didn't read Superman Red and Blue. I actually dropped this book. It's an anthology book, so it's not in continuity. And I looked at the preview in Comixology, and I saw the first page of art, and I was like, I just cannot find any excitement in my body about this comic book. I've tried. I read it for a month, actually 3 months, and I don't know if there's any good Superman stories in it. So I just skipped it. So I don't have the timer. I'm allowed to say no. But here's the thing, right? I said at the beginning, no toxic positivity, but let's not just be mean. Maybe I bordered on mean about Tom King for a second there. The thing with this book, and the reason I haven't enjoyed it and the reason I dropped it is, the Superman stuff feels very like all the same story. Every story is like Superman helps people and then they help him and everybody's friends. But it's like, it's really hard to tell me that this is a prestige anthology when every story just has like the same feeling. Or it's like something about him growing up and like, and this is why my cape is red and red means something to me. I don't know, I'm just making that up. So it just feels like all the other anthology books right now, whether they're at DC or at Marvel, have done a lot more for the characters. And I've been coming around on Superman for a few years now. I really am in Rebirth. I really have enjoyed some of even the Bendis stuff. I don't even really like Bendis. But this to me just took me back to the reason I never read Superman before 2011, because he just bores me. So maybe you're somebody who likes Onward Flash. This is Flash 771. So we're arc of Wally West trying to quit the Flash thing, getting sucked through time. It's very, if you are old like me and you remember Quantum Leap. And in this issue, it really gets away from just doing one quantum multiple. So that's why there are so many different artists, because there's a different artist for every time period. It's written by Jeremy Adams. I have no familiarity. I cannot think of if I've ever read an issue by Jeremy Adams before. This is fun because it goes through a couple of different time periods, but I don't think you pick it up here. I think you gotta pick it up from either the previous issue, 770, which is a really, really, really strong issue that I loved, or you just pick it up from the beginning of Infinite Frontier. Things are developing a little bit about why he's bouncing around time in the Speed Force, but this one, just because it has so many art styles and goes through so many different periods, it's like a little bit manic. I don't know if it's like really gonna please you that you read. For everybody who is in the comments right now, is this stream a good internet quality? Am I seeing grainy or laggy? I don't have a way to check that while I'm talking. So if it seems like it's getting low quality, tell me, and I might have some little things that I can tweak on the side. I want to say hello to folks in the chat. I see we've been joined by my buddy Chicken, Michael Boyd, who's Raymanta, who has some of the best takes out there, has joined, as well as Leslie Ann, and I want to say hi to everybody who's in there. Okay, hey, that's it for DC Polls. I made it. Okay. So glad we made it. I sing that obnoxiously all around the house, like whenever we get through something hard, like even if it's just cleaning up after a dinner, I'll just like look around at everybody and I go, so glad we made it. And like sometimes I deliberately sing it really badly. It's one of those things that I do. So we're going to move on to Marvel. Marvel's been like a nice light pull for me lately because I'm not reading any of the Heroes Reborn stuff. My policy is, if you have an alternate universe thing, I will wait until it's done to see if I care. Because I don't need to read it month to month. It's not impacting any of the other books. I am in this whole Marvel game to be able to enjoy the continuity of Marvel. And if you're not giving me continuity, then I don't really need to read it week to week. So after it's all done and it's all on Marvel Unlimited, then I will take care of it. All right, here we go on Marvel. Now, I don't only read in continuity. Ooh, a little choppy. Just now turned choppy and low. Well, it looks like maybe it bounced back a little bit, but let me know if the stream continues to be choppy, and I will work my technological magic behind the scenes here. But I'm going to check in on these Marvel books, shall we? What I need to do is make this timer an infinite loop so I don't even pause between and I just keep talking. Okay. Alien by Philip Kennedy Johnson. As it turns out, I don't just read Marvel in continuity books. I read their main licensed books as well. I don't know how you can make a book with aliens in near-Earth orbit so boring. It just is hanging there. It looks not great. It's by Salvador Larroca, so everything is very, very stiff. It looks like they're all kind of just toys that have been posed. And but it has its moments, especially with the alien, although even the alien kind of looks like a sculpted toy of it. The only thing I can say is if you're a big fan of the Alien movies, this does make a connection to the movies to bring the aliens to near-Earth orbit, but I just think that the story it's trying to capture our attention with has way too much to do with this, like, one person that's within, what is that, the name of the corporation, the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, instead of kind of the evil of the corporation as a whole. Maybe you've got to start there, but I just think I've given it 4 issues now. It might actually be a drop for me, because it's just going nowhere, and I think 4 issues with aliens, you should be able to grab me at that point. So that is Alien. Let's move on to, slurp, 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 Captain America Annual. All right, so these Captain America Annuals, these infinite destinies, I always want to say densities because of how it lines up there. It looks like they're all going to be working with these characters who have come out of the Infinity Stones at the end of Infinity Wars, the Jerry Duggan event that grew out of Guardians of the Galaxy. The Stones sought out people and became personified people. One of those is Star, who we saw on the pages of Captain Marvel, and Iron Man Annual a couple of weeks ago introduced one of the other ones who's actually out of the pages of Miles Morales, and then this one is from one of the follow-up miniseries to that Infinity Wars. It was decent. I don't know if I can say it was like super remarkable, but it's by Jerry Duggan, who's got a great voice, and I really liked the art. It was like a little bit on the kind of scratchy, sketchy side, but the colors here by, who's the colorist? Ruth Redmond, not somebody I'm familiar with, have a really nice glowing quality. I like when colors almost look like lit from behind and give the characters a real glow, and I think that works here. And that's a great cap on that page. I don't know how well you can see that at the size that I'm sharing it, but I enjoyed this comic, and I'm certainly going to keep reading the Infinite Destiny Annuals, but it's not essential. Okay, time's up. Let's see what's next. I made it blink, so it would be really aggressive. Okay, next we have Fantastic Four. Okay, remember when I said I was going to be nice when I have complaints about things? Let's see how I can be nice about this. Okay. Nice things to say. Okay, so it's a Fantastic Four comic by Dan Slott. And, okay, the gag has gone on long enough. I don't really think Slott has a feel for these characters, and what it comes down to is you look at each of these characters, and if they have any kind of an arc through this Dan Slott series itself, and then an arc to prior Fantastic Four, and they just don't. Like, Sue Storm is just mean, and this is not me being like, oh, my lady character has to be sweet and nice to everybody. She's just, like, mean-spirited in a way that just makes you wonder if she's a Skrull every issue, and this has been going on for, like, 30 issues. But I think we could say that about the characterization of every character except for the Thing. They're kind of just all these rude, boring versions of themselves that there's no feel for. I don't feel any love in this book. And I really think if you're going to write Fantastic Four, it's got to have some emotion to it other than just Doom being mean to people. So see, I managed to say some things that weren't just mean about it. I have to practice. This is why I'm doing a live, to practice saying critical but not mean things about comics. Now we're talking about the Mighty Valkyries. This comic book entertains me so dang much. So it's got 2 stories in it. It has the story of that main Valkyrie that we know, Jane Foster, and then there's this other Valkyrie who's kind of like roughly the movie Valkyrie, but she's like a comic version of the movie Valkyrie. I don't know if it's the same one from Exiles because I didn't read Exiles, and they have 2 different sets of art for the 2 of them. So the main art is by Mattia de Lewis, the other art is by Erica D'Urso, and I am obsessed with this person's art. If you've never seen their art, go pick up the Kelly Thompson run on Jessica Jones. I mean, it's so gorgeous. But here's the thing, even though it's photorealistic, it still has motion. It still portrays movement. It still has drama, and I just am enchanted by it. But it's alternating with art, which I didn't excerpt, by the other artists, which is good. It's good comic book art, and it's starting to show us that these two Valkyries with their two different missions are actually kind of converging on the same thing, and it all has to do with Hela and a little bit to do with Loki, and that is exciting. Okay. Next up, we have New Mutants. Now, of course, if you watch our This Week in X show, you already got me to talk about New Mutants, but here we go, me by myself, 60 seconds all to myself to talk about New Mutants. This is marvelous. I think if you haven't been reading New Mutants all along, could you just pick this up? Kinda, because it's the first issue that really fully features the original kind of old school New Mutants with the addition of Warpath. But these are all Claremontian characters, whereas previous issues kind of split the attention between them and some of the younger characters. It doesn't really have a lot happening plot-wise, but it has really good interaction. So if you want to see something that kind of acknowledges who these characters are, that's fun, that looks just absolutely beautiful, as we talked about on the show this week, Alex Lind's art is just beautiful, wonderful art to alternate with Rod Rice, then I can endorse it. Should you be picking up this run in general? Absolutely yes. I think if you start right after X of Swords, you don't really have to know a lot about what's happening in the whole Krakoa everything. It gives you all the information you need. The issues are super, super dense. They take me some of the longest to read out of all the X-Men books. The art has been spectacular. There's really no downside. And again, Vita Ayla does incredibly authentic voicing for younger characters. It all feels very real and hefty. Okay, what's up next? Oh, Planet Size. I should get twice as long to talk about Planet Size X-Men. Alas, I do not. Okay. I know the ending of New Mutants was sad. Okay, Planet Size X-Men. Here's the thing. This issue is all spectacular spectacle. If you have not been reading Docs, Dawn of X, Reign of X, X of Swords, all these Oxes all along, should you pick this up? If you just want to see like a really cool comic book, yeah, pick it up. I mean, it just looks great. It's not story. It's story by implication. It's story if you've been reading all along and you can connect the dots for Emma and Magneto, for the Iraqans, for all these other things. But otherwise, it's mutant creation myth. And it's showing you the key to what's going to happen and how people are going to react to mutants over the next kind of few, probably months, years of the Marvel Universe. I don't know, if you're not following X-Men, if this is the one to pick up. I think I would maybe wait for the first issue of Jerry Duggan's run, but he wrote this, so it's obviously setting it up. And Pepe Larraz and Marta Gracia just do a tremendous, tremendous job. A lot of really beautiful pages, one of which I almost decided to buy, but I do need money for things like food and a roof over my head. Okay, let's move on. Next up is Miles Morales' Spider-Man, The Clone Saga. Here's the thing. If you hear The Clone Saga, you might be like, oh boy, this is going to be a very 90s affair. I don't know if I'm along for this ride. The best compliment I can pay to this creative team, especially writer Saladin Ahmed, is it just doesn't feel like the 90s Clone Saga. It's a very distinct Clone Saga that's very much an outgrowth of this specific run on Miles Morales, and it's entertaining in a specific way that has to do with who Miles Morales is. And Carmen Carnero, man, she is one of my favorite artists at Marvel. She stuns me every time. A lot of this issue is really just talk. It's an interrogation between Miles and his multiple clones. What do they want? Why do they care about Miles? What is their end goal? And why are they so angry at Miles, right? That's really interesting. They really perceive Miles to be the villain. So it's a little bit of a talk issue, but actually I think if you were to just pick this up, it might be enough to intrigue you all on its own and then go back. I don't know that this run has had like super high highs, like 5 out of 5, but it very rarely disappoints, and I have to give it a lot of credit for that. Okay, let's see what's next. Star Wars. I do read all of the Star Wars comics for now. What happened is I started reading them when they all got relaunched, I guess at the, was it beginning of 2019? Could have been 2020 because they didn't have much room to come out. I don't know. But maybe it was 2020. But that wasn't worth 12 seconds. But the point is, I was like, oh, I'll just read all the number ones because we've advanced to the period that directly follows The Empire Strikes Back, and maybe that'll be fun. And it has been a lot of fun. And Charles Soule is doing this very, very clever thing on this Star Wars book here with Ramon Rosales as his artist, where he's telling what feels like it could be its own movie worth of story with all of the intercutting that you would expect from a Star Wars film. But he's doing it so that every issue kind of feels like its own capsule tale. And I have to give a lot of credit to a writer who does that. I don't know how I would do it. I mean, it's a really difficult task, I think. And so, the thing they're doing in this War of the Bounty Hunters, though, is they're moving Han Solo around in the carbon, whatever he's frozen in, such that everybody's chasing him. And it's just one of those things where, because it's not ever mentioned that that happened in the next movie, it like almost makes it so that it feels like it's not possible. Oh, time's up. I will say I didn't love the colors in this one. I have previously, but I did not this issue. Okay. Ooh, now we have Venom 200. I should get like 5 times as long to talk about this one. Okay. This is the last issue of the Donny Cates Ryan Stegman run on Venom, and it has a lot of tidying up to do. There's a huge amount of pencilers because there's a lot of different stories, and each penciler kind of tackles one story. But the thing that I have the credits page twice, it was so interesting. The thing that's so interesting to me about this, though, is Donny Cates does something really audacious with Venom, with Venom the symbiote, and also with Eddie Brock, that I would not have expected in a final issue of a run. It's bold, it's different, it really moves him in a different direction that many Marvel characters are allowed to be moved. So for that reason, I was kind of interested. A lot of the other stories, though, are really boring. Like, I don't think this was worth all the pomp and circumstance of it being a 200 issue, but it sets up interesting things for an upcoming Venom run. It does have some Flash Thompson Venom in it, who I really, really like. I think it did a good job, but this run, I know a lot of people loved it. I liked it at the beginning, but once it hit these big events, it started to feel mild to me. I think there's a mild close to a mild book with one fantastic development. Is there one more book? X-Corps, probably. X-Corps! Okay. I've noticed that the internet hates this comic book. I didn't hate it, although I can understand the hate for it better after talking about it on This Week in X, mostly to do with the stiffness of the art. I really enjoy comic books about super heroic people engaging in drudgerous things because I like the idea that their intelligence, their superpowers, their status doesn't absolve them from the bureaucratic necessities of life. But nobody really wants to read a comic about people going to the toilet or having to pick up their medication. Well, some people do, and that's why Slice of Life comics exist. So what I want from this book is for it to be a very kind of almost dull version of like being a mutant and having Krakoa and all these things doesn't necessarily make them good at business. And this issue gets really close to doing that. It's about interviewing people for the director of the board. You could read it all by itself. In fact, this should have been the #1 of this comic book. You can hear me go off on This Week in X. I think you just pick it up and read it if you like the idea of all that mutant business filling the board drudgerous stuff. But I don't know if there's anywhere else for it to go. That is the trick. And that is the end of my Marvel pulls. All right. I think as a reward, I get to have a drink of water. Yeah, Valkyrie's... I think Valkyrie all along has been super underrated. It was in my top 20 books when the Jane Foster Valkyries series was out. I really love the mini-series that run alongside of King in Black. I really love this. And I don't think it's just Aaron. Like, Aaron comes and goes. He's good sometimes. He's not good other times. I think Aaron is a tremendous co-writer. And I think, hey, Lance, I haven't seen you for a while. It's good to see you in chat. I think that Aaron with Ewing was a special kind of magic, and I think Aaron with Torun Grumbeck is a special kind of magic on this as well. So I'm really, really enjoying it. Highly recommend. Valkyrie is one of the top books at Marvel that I'd be like, even if you know nothing, even if you are not following Thor at all, even if you didn't read any of Iron Thor, just pick up the Jane Foster Valkyrie series right from the start. So that felt like a lot of comics, y'all. There are so many comics in this indie list. I don't even know if it's all going to open. My computer said, are you sure you want to open all 56 of those items? Oh, lordy. No, I don't know if this is going to work. Maybe we're going to do it in chunks. I was going to make like a PDF of each set of credits, and then that didn't really work out. So now we're just opening them all as images in preview and hoping for the best. Okay, we're going to do it in 2 chunks. That'll give me a chance to drink some water in the middle. We all win. All right. Now, I have a wide-ranging and voracious taste in indie books, and this is one of the weeks where I was actually able to get everything in indie, because a lot of times things will be a week behind releasing in digital, or the smaller indies can't get it through the Comixology approval process quickly enough, but this week it just so happened every indie I was able to read, so that was pretty cool. Let's see, what were people in chat saying? Photorealistic Craven is pretty haunting in that Valkyrie's book. I think that Elias really treads the line right before we get into Uncanny Valley, where things kind of still pop and look good, but they don't have that like creepy undead, dead in the eyes look that things can look like when they're photorealistic. I do really like where Venom ended up. I think that's a lot of my positive sentiment on Venom 200, as I like where it ended rather than how it got there necessarily. I loved Mastermind and X-Corps. If you want to hear me talk positively about X-Corps in the face of disinterest, go watch This Week in X, because Faria and Tyler were not having it. And Strange Academy, I talked about it last week, actually. I really liked the issue last week. I feel like all the kids in Strange Academy kind of felt very generic for a while, and now it's starting to feel like they have specific, distinct personalities. I don't know that a book should have to take 12 issues to get there, but it got there, so I'm enjoying it. Great read from Marvel Unlimited. Marvel Unlimited, I just had to renew my subscription this morning, actually. Somehow, like, my credit card must have changed or whatever, and it didn't renew. And I just had this moment of reflection of, like, I think right now on the annual it's $68 or something like that, $70. That's absurd. You get every Marvel comic book 3 months after release. You don't have to be a crazy person like me, and I don't know why I do this. I mean, I might stop. I really, now that it's down to 3 months, in the next year, you really might see me just read as things hit unlimited, other than X books. It's one of the best entertainment values in the world, and I have a website that I profit in some ways from you buying physical collections, and I'm here to tell you you probably should just have Marvel Unlimited, so that's how great it is. Okay, I'm going to have one more drink of water, then we're going to do the indie books. Are you ready? Are you liking the timer? Should I do more? Is there something different I should do with the timer? I discovered that StreamYard will only let you add one screen to streaming at a time, so I couldn't like have a separate timer and the issues, so I had to kind of do some magic to get them all in one place. Okay, y'all, maybe it should only be 30 seconds. Do you really think I need a minute for every book? I don't know if I do. Okay, here we go. I get to go on my whole Xenoscope spiel. Okay, so Xenoscope in the past year or two, just past year, what they've been doing is they're doing like bi-monthly or 6-weekly one-shots that are 1.5 times at length. So they pretty much add up to a whole series, but they're having each one of them be their own titled series. This one is called Bell Sirens. Xenoscope, a lot of people think it's just this TNA cheesecake company. It's not. It's just not. It's a whole universe of kind of mythologically and fairy tale based heroes, and the vast majority of them, I'd say 9 out of 10, are women, and so are the villains, and that's just fun. I wish they would have more women writing them and drawing them, but one thing at a time. So Belle is a monster hunter. It's kind of turning like Belle from Beauty and the Beast on her ear, and this is consistently probably the second best character that Xenoscope has. I don't know that this issue was the best issue of Belle, because it references her original miniseries really, really hard, and if you haven't read it, I don't know if it's satisfying, but I think if I had to recommend a character from Xenoscope to just pick up, I would either say Van Helsing or Belle. So go grab her first miniseries and read through. She's really fun. She's kind of like I know my time's up. I'm just resetting the title, the counter. She's kind of like the Batgirl of Xenoscope. Okay, Berserker from Keanu Reeves and Matt Kindt. This was a drop for me. This was my final issue of Berserker. This is the comic that was famously kickstarted, even though Keanu Reeves by himself could probably get a lot of people into comic book stores. I actually really like that they kickstarted it, but that's a conversation for another time. Maybe I could use it as one of my further monologues. Here's the thing. This book, it has very little of this, he's this Wolverine, he's this, Greg Rucka, what is that series called? The Old Guard. He can't be killed, he's a brutal warrior. We've seen 1,000 people do it 1,000 times before, but it doesn't have that much of him in the present. It's mostly focused on him slowly remembering his past and his origin. I just find it deeply uninteresting. Like, they have this kid, he can't be killed, they use it to warn other tribes. It just feels so derivative. I'm sure there's going to be a twist because it's Matt Kindt, and Matt Kindt does twists, but I just like can't get excited about it, and I think after 3 issues, and the fact that it's backed by Keanu Reeves, I'm just looking for a slightly higher quality than that. Okay, I have to figure out how to loop the video. Hold on, we're taking a quick break for me to see if I can just loop the video. Can you loop? Looping. No, I'm not sure. Okay. Back to the top. This was a brand new #1 from endorsed by Greg Rucka, even though it doesn't say him on the title. I think in the solicits it was like presented by Greg Rucka. I could not get into this, and not because of the story. The story is really cool. It's a really well-researched historical story that's still fantastical by Robert McKenzie and David Walker, but the thing is that the art, it's just not the right art, unfortunately. There are some pages I looked at so many times. She's in this stone tower. She's trying to escape. I think what we're supposed to see here is that she breaks off a piece of wood in the top panel, and then she uses it like to slide down the stairs. I probably spent longer than a minute just looking at this page trying to make sense of it. Between the ambiguity of what she's doing, the choice of the panels, the slicing of the panels, the darkness, the breaking of the 180 rule, it just didn't track to me at all. And that's how I felt about the whole issue, which is a shame because the script is really clever. So if you're somebody who can look past some of that art stuff and you like a clever kind of historical fiction script, I'm not saying you shouldn't buy it, but for me, I can't devote time and money to it every month if it can't really get the basics right. So that's an issue number 1 drop. New phenomena for me this year. Oh my gosh, my cursor turned into some other kind of cursor and now it's cursing me. Okay. G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe, real American hero. G.I. Joe is there. Okay. G.I. Joe. Here's the thing. I just liked Hama so much on that Iron Fist series, which is currently in my top 10 of the year, that I was like, maybe I'm just going to buy Larry Hama's G.I. Joe. Maybe that's just the thing I'm going to do. Full disclosure, I had every G.I. Joe as a kid. Every one of these that was a figure at that time, especially Jinx in the red there, my favorite all-time G.I. Joe. Here's the thing. It's kind of really great. Artists S.L. Gallant and the colors from Jay Brown here. I really love it. It's what Hama is doing is he's presenting these specific instances of counterterrorism and the idea of the Joes as just this global counter-terrorist force. And he's showing that they get thwarted, sometimes they win, but that it's like a lot more nuanced than going in and just shooting somebody, which is not what I expected from G.I. Joe. So I don't know, this is like a 5 out of 5 comic book, but because I have specific nostalgia for this and because Hama's such a talented writer, I really, really am enjoying it. But it's probably, I'm enjoying it more than it's good, if that makes any sense. Note that this is a different G.I. Joe than that Paul Allor G.I. Joe that was my top pick of 2019. Highly endorsed. If you have not read that, go and get the collection now. You will not be sorry. You do not need to rely on nostalgia. Everybody I've recommended it to has liked it. This is the same G.I. Joe that started at Marvel back in the 80s. IDW now is the license, but it's all those same characters, all that same continuity. Still Larry Hama, who, fun fact, wrote all of the back panels for all of the G.I. Joe, like all their trading cards and stuff, or the cards on the back of their pages. Okay, let's just queue up for Grendel. Grendel Devil's Odyssey. I've never read Grendel ever before, so I just picked this up because I was like, hey, no time better than the present to try. And I've been obsessed with this series. He's this space knight. I guess he's like a cyborg, and he's been tasked with finding a new livable environment for all of the people that rely on him. And it's totally created, written, drawn by Matt Wagner, the creator, and it's colored by Brennan. I don't know if Brennan's brother, son, I'm not sure. But here's the thing. This has been unmissable, issue after issue. I've loved it so much. This issue is a 2-parter. Most of them have been one-shots with the prior issue. And it turns out to hinge on a really, really dull, boring Donald Trump metaphor. I know he was probably creating this while Trump was still the president, and he probably had a lot to say about that, but Grendel has been so much more. It's been so much more metaphorical. It's been so much more funny without relying on this kind of really rude, basic political humor, and it just completely lost me in this issue because it just could have been smarter, and it took probably the best concept of all the one-shots so far, and in the second issue, kind of blew it. So I'm certainly not against the series now, but I just was a little sour on this one. Okay, next we have Home. Home is a story about a family that is trying to immigrate to the United States from, I wish it said what country here. I want to say maybe Guatemala. I could be wrong. And they discover in the process all of the inhumanity of the border process at the United States border, but also that maybe this family has some secrets and some powers that have not been revealed. There are 2 things I really want to remark upon here. One is that I really enjoy the art. It almost has like a very cartoonish, almost like a little misshapen if you look at the faces there. Kind of reminds me of Tradd Moore, how sometimes Tradd Moore's pencil just feels like it takes him wherever it takes him. So kudos to this artist, Anna Weisizik. I'm really enjoying her art here. But this issue kind of turns down the political drama of the personal political drama at the border and just turns into a generic powers discovery training sequence. And this book just can do so much more. So I'm not dropping it. I think it has a lot of interesting things to say, but I just don't know if this issue, it was a middle issue. Okay, that'll have to suffice. All right, I'm going to take a drink of water, and you can ask me questions if you have any questions. Well, you know, post-punk, Omnidog, not all Rucka books always have like truly spectacular, mind-blowing art. That's not always the way that Rucka goes with his books, and I think that's fine. But that one, I just felt like I lost what was happening on the page. There may be a full song at the end. We'll see. We'll see how I'm doing vocally by the end. And Larry Hama featurette for the Snake Eyes movie is tempting. I kind of am tempted to watch that movie anyway, just because like Henry Golding and Snake Eyes, like how can you go wrong? All right, here we go. Gosh, we're only up to H. Feel free to comment along. Have you read these books? Have you not read these books? Do you want to read these books? Are there books you're not seeing in alphabetical order that you're surprised that I haven't read? Okay. And this is only the first half. Okay. House of Lost Horizons. So here's the thing. Mignola's doing this thing now that like Hellboy and BPRD are mostly done, where they're just doing all of these little single series of other characters at the fringes of the Hellboy universe, which I actually really like because it's accessible to me who's not read all of Hellboy, even though I own all of it, but I've yet to read all of it. So this one written by Chris Robertson with art by Leila Del Duca, who I love from, I think, Shudder. I'm looking to see if it's on my shelf here. I really enjoy it. It's a very kind of basic locked house mystery. There's people in a house, it's locked, people are dying, there's mysterious artifacts, maybe the artifacts have something to do with the deaths. This was as generic as you can get and still have a comic that's enjoyable. Like there's just nothing spectacular about it. The first issue had a little bit more of a setup, a little bit more of a creepiness. This is really just people walking around rooms and being like, maybe you did it, maybe you did it. I can't say that I recommend it, but I do. This is one of my favorite genres, locked house murder mystery, one of my favorite genres, so I'm sticking with it. Gosh, say it. I think I should give myself 30 seconds next week. Okay, The Many Deaths of Layla Starr. Y'all, this is a can't miss book right now, okay? It's not my top pick of the week. It's not my favorite issue of it. But if you've not been reading it, you either need to pull it right now or you need to go and put your order in for the collected edition. This is, I'm not joking, kids, okay? How to describe it. So the Avatar, or the goddess of death in a different pantheon, has been let go from her job, and she's on Earth witnessing the person who might supplant her or cause her replacement, and she keeps dying. But she's friends with the god of life, who is making sure that her deaths aren't permanent. That's kind of funny. The first two issues were like masterclasses. I love what is his name? Philippe Andrade's art here, and the colors by, I guess he's doing it with color assist by Ana Zamero. It's just brilliant. I mean, every page has this otherworldly. I only have 6 seconds left. This issue used the narrative device that I didn't really love. I think it was distracting from the story a little bit. And it was a little bit too fussed about how clever the narrative was. But that does not take away from how brilliant this book was. Okay. And hey, that's the first half of my indie books. So let me pull up the second half of my indie books. I guess I probably could have waited one more book of review to drink that water, because now I've got to open the next set of books. So I guess my question overarching is not only like, are you finding some books to read with some of these, but like, is this entertaining? Which I don't ask in like a, validate me kind of way. Like, no. I'm asking more in the sense of like, do you think that this is entertaining even from the perspective of maybe you haven't read the books? Because there's not anybody who's probably read all, 40 of the books that I read this week. But if it's entertaining to hear about them, even having not read them, that makes it fun. So I'm interested in your perspective in that. And you can say no. I have plenty of shows on this channel. You don't have to be entertained by every one. I'm not even entertained by all of them. And that's why I try so many different ones. Okay, let's get my preview back up on the screen here. All right, second half of the indies. Let's go. First, we have Norse Mythology 2, because apparently once you get to issue 6, it's time to just give up and start a second series. I don't know why they couldn't just do a 7th issue. Why did we need a second series? So this is being adapted by good old P. Craig Russell, but it has a different art team for every one of the myths that gets adapted. And I don't know. This one was okay. It's about the origin of poetry and art in the Norse mythology. The cartooning was fine. The myth was fine. It was fine. I think the first series really kind of cherry-picked the most exciting myths. And now that we're in a second series, I get the feeling it's kind of like these are a little bit bottom of the barrel. Funny, because barrels fit into the story. But I don't know. I would say go pick up the first story series, pick it up digitally, see if you're into it. I don't know that you need to like jump in and start must-buying this right now. And again, that's because the artist varies, and so you never know really what you're getting. Okay. Next we have, oh boy, I have stuff to say about this. Project Patron from Aftershock Comics, Steve Orlando, and it is drawn by Patrick Piazzalunga. A lot of Italian artists, my people, working in Aftershock Comics. This series starts with a really fun concept. And I'm sorry, I just have to spoil what happens on like the 6th page of the first issue. So cover your ears if you don't want to hear it. There's this Superman-esque character. Much like Death of Superman, he dies at the hands of somebody very Doomsday-esque. And it turns out he comes right back, except for the one that gets brought back is not really him. It's being piloted remotely by this group in the government. This is a brilliant, brilliant concept. It takes something familiar, turns it on its ear, and then does something interesting with it. Except this is so obsessed with the minutia of the personalities that are piloting him that I'm starting to lose if the story's interesting. And it also introduces a villain, but it doesn't give us any reason to care about the villain other than he's a villain. It just... Orlando, great conceptually, but I'm having a lot of problems with the execution. And this actually dropped with me. It's 3 issues, and they haven't made me care about what's happening with these characters, so I'm out. Okay. Next up, we have Rangers of the Divide. This is out from Dark Horse Comics. The thing that's so fascinating about this book, it is all by Megan Huang. And the great thing is, letters, everything. And it looks pretty darn good for somebody who has to be a specialist at scripting, writing, coloring, and lettering. But this falls into a similar pitfall to Project Patron, whereas it just has this anonymous voice for the characters. Like you can tell, oh no, the clock's not ticking. I'll advance it artificially here. You can tell who's supposed to be the bad guy character and who's supposed to be the sentimental character that you like, but it's not giving me enough reasons to like it. And I think that it differs by the reader, right? I think if you're the kind of reader who likes a book just because the character design is cool and the characters are cool and you don't get so much into plot, a lot of these books that I'm saying are drops for me, you might really like. But I'm somebody who's like, if I'm going to spend all this time reading all these comics, and if I'm reading the best of this industry, and if I'm reading 50% every week, you got to do more than a bunch of generic characters riding dragons, which is a shame because I love this artwork. I think it's really, really well made, but I just don't think that this book is anything more than I made up a world with dragons. You got to give a little bit more plot at the beginning. I would say a comparable title that does this really well is Sarah and the Royal Stars, out from Vault. It's already concluded. You could read it. It's fantastic. I think that's a title that does well with this kind of like making up our own mythology. Now we have the final issue of Vault's Resonant. I have to be honest, I probably would have dropped this 2 or 3 issues ago if they had not tipped that it was a 10-issue series. It just never really found a way to entertain me. It is very much The Walking Dead. I mean, it's just The Walking Dead with a different concept behind why the zombies are zombies, what they're doing as zombies. And I don't know. I don't think it ended in a satisfying way. I don't think it made it worth all the progress. I think some of the things that seemed like maybe they would matter later never mattered later. I never really bought into the human drama, so I can't recommend it. I know a lot of people really like it on Twitter. I think it's well made from like a pure construction standpoint, but you got to grab me. And in retrospect, I wish that I had not read it. Okay. Next up, we have Save This. These are drops, man. Sometimes there's drops. I'm trying to drop more. I think 2 or 3 years ago, I know the timer's running. I'll fit it all in. 2 or 3 years ago, I probably would just kept reading all these titles just out of habit. But like, no, it's time to like cut down this list. Life is finite. And in this finite life, I have time for Save Yourself. This comic it's wacky. I don't know how to really fully explain it. It's wacky and it's beautiful and I love it. It's about this girl, this young woman. She works in a coffee shop. She's obsessed with this group of kind of Powerpuff Girl-esque figures who are real in the real world, but they're also like, there's TV shows and stuff about them. But what happens if she runs into them? And what if they're not as great as they're cracked up to be? And what if they have like kind of a nefarious plot? So it just takes the whole Powerpuff Steven Universe kind of thing, turns it on its head. It's very, very gay in a really awesome way. It's got great art, great colors. I think that this is an example where the characters were delightful, like those past couple books that I complained about. But then on top of that, the story made me go, I wonder what's going to happen. And those two things together make me want to keep reading it. Okay. Up next, Seven Soldiers. Oh, this was intriguing, y'all. Let me make sure the clock is actually running. This was super intriguing. So it's basically like, what if there was a super team of historical and also fictionalized various musketeers, and it's led by D'Artagnan from the Musketeers. And this is like mild spoilers, but it's in issue number 1, so you would know this from the solicit. And the whole concept is, what if there was like a Jedi Order 66 style thing against all the Musketeers. Is that canonical? I don't know. I haven't read the Three Musketeers in many, many years. And so now they have to go around the world assembling all of the best swords people. Oh no, I didn't do an interior page from this. The interior art is amazing. I can't believe I forgot a page. It's different than the cover. It's got more lines in it, but it's similar to the style of the color. This is a pure buy for me. It's a little bit like weird. There's a couple of things with like some nudity and like prostitutes that I'm like, did we need this? I'm not against sex workers in a comic, but I'm like, are you doing this just to titillate, or was there a plot reason? And here I'm on the fence, but it's just smart. It's just a smart book. It's a different kind of thing. It's playing with all different fiction from all around the world. I think it's got Don Juan, it's got Cyrano de Bergerac. I forget who the woman with the sword is, but it's just cool. It's cool. Okay. I'm so angry I didn't save the interior page. Maybe it'll pop up later. Okay. This is Silver City, also from Aftershock Comics. This comic, it hits my spot. It just got me. You know, if you watch a lot of stuff from me, I love heaven and hell bullshit. Nothing makes me more excited than like some kind of Dante's Inferno nonsense, some kind of angels fighting demons. And Silver City has such a cool take on it that is really unlike anything else that I can think of recently. It's this idea that that after you die, that there's this limbo space, this liminal space. Maybe you stay there forever, maybe you don't, but this space, a lot of people have to be there, and it has its own economy, it has its own lifestyle, and you have to kind of get oriented to it. But what happens if you don't want to get oriented? And what happens if there's something a little bit spectacular or supernatural about you, and you die, and you wind up in this space? That really spoils nothing. I am being so vague compared to what is in the issue. This second issue kind of slows it down a little bit, but in a way that kind of fills out the space of the city, gives us reason to care, gives us a little bit more of an overarching story behind what's going on. And I highly, highly recommend. I think it's been 2 great issues. Really, really good. Okay, next up, Silver Coin. Silver Coin is a horror anthology from Image Comics. It's all drawn by Michael Walsh, and it has a linking element, which is the coin. But every story is different. The first issue from Chip Zdarsky was like, holy crap, so amazing, amazing, amazing. Since then, no. And the last issue is by Kelly Thompson, who I love. This issue is by Ed Brazon, who I don't love, and they both sucked. I mean, just really bad. And here's the thing. If you're doing one-shot horror, you have to, and especially if it's with an artifact like this that's about this kind of Faustian deal with the devil, right? You get something you want, but it ends horribly. You have to make me like the character or care about the character or feel the character is dynamic enough, who's getting what they want, such that I then have an opinion about whether they should have got what they want and if they screwed it up badly or not. I don't think that any issue so far, other than the first issue, got there. And I have a high bar for horror anthology. I think you've got to really hit hard with every issue, because it's a lot to ask to get me to pick up every issue when I don't know what the device is going to be, the characters are going to be, or why I'm reading it. So if you like horror and you would hang even if the characters aren't developed just for the horror of it, maybe read it. But for me, hard drop. Okay, next up. I think I'm going to shorten the timer next time. I don't think I always need 60 seconds. Maybe I can have like maybe it's like a game show. Maybe I need to get somebody in the chat to give me more seconds when I want more seconds. Okay, Star Wars High Republic, The Adventures. Y'all, I am here to tell you to pick up this comic book if you are reading Star Wars comic books. It's from the Adventure lines from IDW, and I know you're saying, Krisis, it's a kid's comic. Why do I need to pick it up? I don't understand. Let me show you this art by artist. Oh, see, this is why we have credits this week. Harvey Talbotto with the, he's part of a studio, so there's multiple people, and colors by Rebecca Nalty. This art is banging. It is wild. It looks amazing. The characters all have, they have my hair. We know that's my criteria for good art, is if it has my hair. It's about Jedi, late stage Padawans. They're maybe about to get promoted. They're in this High Republic era, which I find so cool and magical. They arrive at a planet with a force sensitive on it, and there's this scheme on the planet to maybe do something with a secret society on the planet that hates Jedis and the force. And so this all gets embroiled together. It's 5 issues in. Every issue has been great. I just love it. I think it might be my favorite Star Wars ongoing right now. I had no idea. I'd been saving it until my end of poll, and I finally got to it, and I was like, oh, I guess I'll finally read this. And I was like, holy shit. Okay. Whew. Speaking of holy shit. See, it's fun. Here's the thing. It's fun when I love the indie books, right? Like, the drops are kind of sad, but when I'm excited about them. Okay, Time Before Time. Okay, one of the many things that I love time travel nonsense. Oh, I saved the wrong credits page. There's no credits. I love time travel nonsense. And it's in the spirit of Looper, if you love Looper. It's in the spirit of Primer, one of my favorite movies of all time, if you love Primer. But here's the thing that it does so successfully. Time travel is the setting not the device, not the action, it's the setting. It's set against time travel. Within that, there are character conflicts. There is a kind of mob war across time. The future people don't mind the past people, but the past people hate the future people, and they all can time travel to a degree. And then the farther future people are just terrible, and everybody hates them. And it's just, but it's centered on one person who's like, this is an endless loop. Literally, how do I get out of this life? It is so fun. It is so stylish. The color palette is amazing. Zach at Comics XF did a review of this series just about the color palette. Go and read it. Highly recommended. Pick of the week, probably for me. Okay. I love Primer. Yes, it's such a weird little movie. I love when people know it. Unfortunately, we got to end on a downer, y'all. I can just skip it. I can just skip it. This is The Visitor. I'd buy all Valiant. It's one of the shared universes that I'm like, hi, come rain or come shine, I'm going to buy it. And y'all, this wasted my fucking time, and I did not like it. Paul Levitz just wrote the most boring possible series. It connects to the future AD part of Valiant, which I actually really like. Rye was one of my favorite series of last year, but it basically takes 6 issues to be like, what if we tried to stop the future and we couldn't? Talk about time travel used badly as conflict instead of a setting. Nothing happens in the whole series. This guy comes back and he chases some people around for 6 issues, and then they die, and the future seems like it's going to happen anyway, which is a pity because the art was consistently great throughout of it. And Valiant does pretty well with pulling great artists, and that's one of the reasons that it's fun to always pick up Valiant books. But no. Okay, but it's the last issue. You know what happened? It was it had been coming out pre-pandemic, and then it got put on pause, and then it came out post-pandemic. So even though it was probably like borderline drop for me before, it's only one of the only Valiant books coming out right now. So I was like, well, I'm gonna finish it because it's one of the only Valiant books. But whew, I get to drink water now. Okay, maybe I should get the extra time on the clock every issue to get to drink the water. Okay, let's see what you've been chatting about. There are a few more things to talk about before the show is over, by the way. Oh my gosh, you said a lot that time. Just talking about what things you're picking up, hearing about things that are not on your radar. I have not always done live shows. I did a test one last Monday. I'm doing one this Monday. It's a lot of production and it's a lot of time. So I'm trying to find a way that it's like the most entertaining. And then if we can get it down to a thing that's the most entertaining, then I would do it all the time. But if it's not entertaining, then why? So I love getting to chat with you too. This is the thing I really miss about doing live streams back in the day with Freya, is I like the live chat element. It's hard when I'm on a timer, but I actually really like kind of reading you. So, wow, I sold chicken 5 books. I mean, that's why I'm here, to sell you comic books. That's my whole thing. I love the whole comic book medium. I have trouble sometimes getting into manga, but I'm going to crack it. I love European BD. I love webcomics. I know I talk the most about Marvel, but I love it all, and I just want to expose people to that love. And I think if you don't have the time to be looking into all of this stuff all the dang time, I'm spending the time and enjoying it, so why wouldn't I use that to amplify things for you, but also tell you, like with Resonant, you might have really liked what I talked about with Resonant. If you like The Walking Dead, but a different take on it, and you like, that it's tidy and done in 10 issues, maybe you should buy it. Just because I didn't like it, and I think it doesn't mean you shouldn't like it. And I think I can get better, and part of what I like about this format is it forces me to articulate that quickly. And so I want to get better at talking about the books I didn't like in a way that might make you still like them. If I can sell you a book that I didn't like, that to me will be victory. Unrelated question, says Jetpack Handicapped. How do I think the Hickman X-Men will be collected in the OHC Omnibus long term? Well, they've already got to start on that. I mean, they're collecting that big Hickman Omnibus, which I think they made the wrong call on, because they're collecting all of the X-Men series and the giant size X-Men series, which is right, but they're including the X of Swords issues, which is weird because they don't stand by themselves very well at all. And I think they should have put in X-Men Empire, because I don't know where else it should have gone. I think that Marvel knows that people want a complete collection of stuff in X-Men, and they're just making easy misses. Like, they announced a Hellions OHC, great, because Hellions is cool, but they should have just put Fallen Angels in it. Like, show us the commitment that you're going to collect everything in a coherent way. That's what people want. That's what the people who buy these oversized, there's no oversized books up here for me to refer to because they're on a different shelf, but that's the things that the people who buy oversized books are looking for. They're looking for great reads, and they're looking for faithfulness, that they can have everything that they need in a single book. And I just wish that they would do that. Does the Great Lakes Avengers count as the actual Avengers? I don't think they officially have a franchise. I don't. I think they're like cheating a little bit. So I thought what I would do, I want to wrap this up not too far over the hour, so I know I don't have a lot of time, but last week everybody liked when I talked about that board game. So I have a couple, I thought I would bring some like unusual things that I have that aren't necessarily comics and talk about them a little. So the thing that was right next to me on the shelf here is this Wild Times. It's something I kickstarted. It's an oral history of Wildstorm Studios. If you watch me a lot or follow me on Twitter, you know I love Wildstorm comics from Image in the 80s. And this guy, Joseph Hedges, basically interviewed everybody big. A few of the big ones like Jim Lee and Brandon Choi chose not to participate, but he basically interviewed all the other heavy hitters from Wildstorm in 2015, and he compiled it into chapters that kind of tracks Wildstorm's history and also tracks certain series, so Wildcats, Gen 13, The Authority, Planetary, Astro City. And it's this is actually what I read on the plane on the way to New Zealand. I saved it because I knew that it was going to be a 24-hour travel, and I read the whole thing on the flight. I don't know how you can get it now. I think maybe the author has it digitally on his website, so maybe try that. But I'm a big fan, and I love oral histories. Another oral history book I have right here is Marvel Comics, The Untold Story. It's not purely an oral history. It's more of kind of like just a sequential tale told by Sean Howe, but he clearly did a lot of interviewing, and he has a lot of quotes, and it kind of tracks Marvels from the early 60s. I feel like this one kind of falls apart in the 90s, and everybody kind of just stops being excited about the material and finger points, which, fair, that's what Marvel was at the time, but it just was a little bit less compelling to me once it got that far. So I have lots of weird little stuff, and so I thought that if you like when I talk about other things like oral histories, like tabletop gaming, that maybe I could just bring in some other stuff. I have games and stuff I was going to show too, but we've gone almost an hour already, so I think I might save that for the future. Oh, Weathering Wildstorm. If you want to ever dive back and read that Wildstorm stuff, Gen 13, Wildcat, Stormwatch, any of that, there's this great blog. It's called Weathering Wildstorm, and he's done what I've done with X-Men. He's gone through every single Wildstorm thing ever and put them in an objectively readable order, and it's just really great work, and it's really fun. You know, Wildstorm is kind of like an ostensibly dead universe, and you get sad because the fan works kind of go away when a universe dies, and you don't ever want to see that. But I really love that somebody's spending the time on that. So I only have 2 more segments today before we wrap things up. And one more segment is just a quick look at next week. Now, last week the feedback was I did not need to talk about everything that was coming out next week. So I limited myself to 1 Marvel book, 1 DC book, 2 indies, and then any collections that I thought you maybe should be aware of. So let me share the screen. No timer here. And we're going to talk about it. Get that into the broadcast. Okay, my top pick for DC next week is this new Mr. Miracle book. It is not about Scott-Free Mr. Miracle. It's about a different Mr. Miracle. The first issue was so much fun. It was so friggin' stylish. The art was just like off the charts gorgeous. The voice of the character was so fun, acerbic. It's I forget which Mr. Miracle this is. Maybe one of you know the name. Is it Shiloh? Shiloh Norman, I want to say, maybe is the Mr. Miracle. I just highly enjoyable. A character I know nothing about, so maybe got it totally wrong. I would never know. And I just really thought it was cool. I'm super eager for a second issue. It's doing a lot with the idea of Mr. Miracle as a celebrity, and what happens if he's like so jaded by his celebrity that he kind of forgets why he was escaping things to begin with, which is just a hair different, really, than the Tom King version of Mr. Miracle. And if this maintains the quality of the first one, I would gladly hold this up beside the Tom King one as something really cool. Okay, my Marvel pick of the week might be surprising, and I thought a long time about this, but it's Gamma Flight. Not just because I'm an Alpha Flight fan, but because I really love that Ewing is taking a chance on something different in a lot of ways here. He has a co-writer on it, which I think is great. It's not the traditional Alpha Flight team, right? It's got Absorbing Man and Titania, who've been hilarious in Immortal Hulk and who really were great also in Saladin Ahmed's Black Bolt before that. I know this is not going to run forever. I know it's not going to be really popular, but these are characters who I perk up every time I see them in the Incredible Hulk series. I'm really excited to see what Al Ewing can do with them all together. Okay, Spawn's universe. I hope it's my Wi-Fi. So I just heard Tim Burnham say that his Wi-Fi was maybe crapping out and I was getting a little stuttery. I know that there's other people in my household using Wi-Fi. So if I'm seeing stuttery to you, please let me know. It's the only way I know. So I got 2 indie picks, and my first pick is Spawn's universe. I tried reading Spawn a little bit before Spawn 300, and I was like, what the F is this? Todd had an executive editor on the line, but good old Todd McFarlane, he didn't have an editor actually reading his work, and I'm not convinced anybody actually was reading the words he was writing other than Tom Orzechowski as the letterer. And when I say it was incoherent, there were like pages and pages would go by where just nothing made sense at all. But in the last year, I happened to pick up one Spawn issue one week. I was bored. I don't know why. And he has an editor now, and you can just feel it. It's like coherent. It hangs together. And here's the thing: Todd has never lacked for imagination. The story in Spawn is friggin' cool, and the visuals, he gets great artists on it. But it just was like missing a touch because he was the sole writer. With an editor on it, it kind of has magic again. And now he's expanding it to a whole Spawn shared universe. There's nothing that makes me more excited than a shared universe in comics. It doesn't have to be superheroes. It can just be a shared universe of neighbors. Like anything that shares, like what Terry Moore's shared universe. Any shared universe makes me excited. So now that Spawn is expanding and we're going to get multiple books with multiple creators, multiple voices, and then it's going to have an editor, I'm into it, man. I'm ready. I'm first in line. I probably still have Spawn #1 from 1992. I sign me up, man. So I'm totally into it. Okay. The other one is Vengeance of Vampirella. You can tell I'm a 90s kid. So here's the thing. Dynamite puts out a lot of Vampirella books. And they're all in their own separate continuity, but they have a very hyper time approach where like they're all Vampirella, right? Some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them I drop. I'm not so into her that I have to read every issue of every series. But this Vengeance of Vampirella, it continues a specific 90s series, which I've never read. And I just like it because it treats her as somebody with a history and a past. I don't like when every series just starts cold and reinvents Vampirella. She's been reinvented 100 times. She's been around for decades. This series actually says, well, what if we just start from a Vampirella that already exists? The world is in a post-apocalyptic state. The demons and the vampires have already won. And what happens if she gets reborn into that world? Paul Cornell had already done that in a series in like 2017 or 2018. Also, probably my favorite Vampirella that I've read. But this one just does it in a really pleasing way. And here's the thing. It has nudity. It has cheesecake. I'm not going to say that it doesn't. But it's not just a male gaze. Like, it will do cheesecake on the male characters. Like, it's equal opportunity. And I'm a fan of that. I don't think there's anything wrong with having the human form in a comic book. I think when a comic book becomes all about the human form in all of its various forms, then I start to have a dispute with it. But I think if you're just writing a comic where people occasionally have breasts or show their, like, V-line down to their pelvis, then, that's just hot. And that's fine. But I don't just like it because it's hot. I think the story is cool. There's all these different factions. There's the hellish people. There's the heavenly people. There's the demons. There's the vampire hunters. And I honestly look forward to it every month. It's gone up and up and up my pull list. And right now it's probably my top 4 or 5 things that I pull. In terms of collections, next week's not a big collection week. I think because DC is still like not quite into these new series enough to hit volume 1s. But if you like Dune at all, man, this House Atreides book has been straight up fire for me. It is a Dune prelude. It's addressing the things that happened one generation before the first book of Dune, which will be the movie. I don't know if it works if you have never read or watched Dune, because I have. But I read and watched Dune many years ago. More years ago than several of you are old. I know this for a fact. And it still hits for me. The art has been outstanding. It's nothing like the art in this cover. And I really like it. So if you've been on the fence and you've been waiting, pick it up digitally and read this first arc. And then, of course, I would have to mention Marvel Masterworks Uncanny X-Men Volume 13. I'm clearly going to buy this, so it's going to be on a haul around the world in the future. I don't actually like this material all that much. This is where Claremont starts being shaky to me. I think he's having more fun on New Mutants than he is here. But it's just wild to me that this comic, which was one of the first pricey back issues I ever bought back in the 90s, is on the cover of a Marvel Masterworks. It's from its mid-80s. Like, we are far. And they've already solicited Volume 14, which is going to be Mutant Massacre. I don't know if I want that in Masterworks. I'm like, that's not a Master. I mean, it's a great story. It's historic. But I don't know if I want a Marvel Masterwork of that. So I felt I would be remiss if I did not mention it. Okay, y'all, we've reached the end. I am going to do a song because last week people asked. But here's the thing. I have so much recording technology in this house. And yet, in order to get you a decent quality stream of me singing a song, I'm just going to have to carry the microphone across the room because you'll see, I'm so loud and I would have to have all of my studio gear otherwise. So thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate your feedback and your comments. I don't know if I'm going to come back next week. I don't know if it's going to be longer, shorter. Everything I did this week was in response to things that people said last week. So I'll go back through the chat after this and I'll look at your comments on YouTube. And if you're telling me this is great fun, I'll do more. If you're like, talk less, sing more, stand on your head. If the things are entertaining and you're getting something from it, then I will do more. But I don't know that will necessarily be next week because I've got some other stuff cooking. So I want to say thank you so much for watching. And if you care to stick around to hear me sing a song, I'm going to carry this microphone across the room and then we're going to sing. Okay. Carrying the microphone across the room because I'm loud. I'm the loudest one on the internet today. Okay. All right. I thought I guess I probably have to talk louder though. I thought in honor of Planet Size X-Men, I would sing one of my favorite covers, It's about space. Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Check your protein pills and put your helmet on. Ground control to Major Tom. Commencing countdown, engines on. Check ignition and may God's love be with you. This is ground control to Major Tom. You really made the grade, and the papers want to know whose shirt you wear. Now it's time to leave the capsule if you dare. Major Tom to ground control. I'm stepping through the door, and I'm floating in the most peculiar way. And the stars look very different today. For here am I floating in a tin can, far above the world. Planet Earth is blue, and there's nothing I can do. Ha! Oh, 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 oh. No, I'm past 100,000 miles. I'm feeling very still, and I think my spaceship knows which way to go. Tell my wife I love her very much. She knows. Ground control to Major Tom, your circuit's dead. Something wrong, can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear me, Major Tom? Can you hear? Am I floating in a tin can, far above the moon? Planet Earth is blue, and there's nothing I can do. Ha! This has been Crushing Comics Live. Thank you all so much for watching. I look forward to talking to you again sometime soon.